So how do you watch a movie? You probably grab a cold beverage and a snack, sit down in front of your smart TV, laptop, tablet, or your phone, click on your favorite app, and start streaming. And if you get tired of your movie choice or decide you just want to check out another flick, you just back out and select another movie. Pretty simple, right? This is the world that we've become accustomed to, and for some, we're born into. Well, this wasn't always the case. There was once a magical time some of us are lucky enough to remember when selecting a movie was much more of a social and tactile experience. On a personal level, I feel a bit sad for anyone not old enough to remember the experience of walking into a video rental store and slowly walking the aisles looking for that hot new release or long forgotten gem from the past. There was just something about walking in on a Friday night and picking out a movie or video game before stopping off to grab a pizza or a few burgers and going home to celebrate the beginning of your weekend. There was a particular feeling you would get walking the aisles and picking up and holding physical copies of movies in your hands. And as a kid in the 90s, I would study the front cover art before turning the box over to memorize the copyright date. So where did you go to rent your movies? Although there were many mom and pop and regional options to serve your video and game rental needs, the two major powerhouses were Blockbuster and Hollywood Video. This is the rise and fall of Hollywood Video. It all started back in 1984 when a young Portland, Oregon man named Mark Waddles considered starting a business renting VHS tapes after being gifted a VCR by his parents. Waddles wasn't the first to have this idea, however, as video rental can be traced all the way back to mid-1970s Germany when Eckhard Baum began lending out Super 8 films to friends and family before turning his hobby into a business. And almost simultaneously to the video rental dreams of Waddles, a little company called Movie Gallery was being started in Dothan, Alabama. More about them later. By 1985, Waddles had opened up a 500 square foot store in downtown Portland, stocking around 300 videos. And in 1988, Hollywood Entertainment was born, and Hollywood video stores began opening up in several more states across the western US. Within just 5 years, Hollywood had become a publicly traded company, and its stores were growing in both size and numbers. Stores now approached 8,000 square feet and were stocking over 15,000 video cassettes. With the average location bringing in around $1 million in revenue, 78 additional stores were scheduled to open in 1995 alone, and rival Blockbuster Video was beginning to take notice. That same year, Blockbuster filed a $10 million lawsuit against the company, alleging Hollywood had hired several former employees in an effort to steal trade secrets. In May, a judge ruled in favor of the much smaller Hollywood after determining Blockbuster had failed to prove irreparable harm had been done. Shortly thereafter, Hollywood executives announced the company had planned to accelerate its location expansion by threefold within a 2 to 3 year time frame and quickly completed a $59 million purchase of Video Watch, a 42-store chain based in the Midwest. The company continued to expand in both locations and sales throughout the rest of the decade and into the early 2000s as copies of VHS titles diminished to make more room for the new and futuristic DVD. And although they never quite caught up to Blockbuster, there was a steady stream of healthy competition between the two companies throughout this time period. TV commercials aired and colorful mailer ads went out in attempts to give the customer the best deal possible. I'll never forget when Hollywood Video finally gave the people what they wanted. 5-day rentals across the board, no questions asked. I can remember arguing with friends over which major chain was better. I was more of a Hollywood guy myself. How about you? To me, it just felt like they put more effort into their image from both an interior and exterior standpoint. The stores look awful and dated to today's standards, but back in the 90s, it just felt more inviting and less generic than Blockbuster. I think I also lived closer to Hollywood, so there was that. At the time of the early 2000s, things seemed to be looking great for Hollywood Video. They had managed to take a small Portland startup and turn it into a gigantic national chain in just over a decade, and had become the industry's second largest company. Truly an American success story. But that's about the time things began to come to an end. By 2004, the group had acquired quite a large sum of debt, partly due to the $100 million purchase of online company Real.com made in 1999, which failed a few years later, and the decision would ultimately be made to sell the company. By late 2004, Blockbuster was back to take another swing. This time, they wouldn't try to sue their closest competitor, but instead attempt to acquire them in what was described as a hostile takeover, with an offer of shares and cash worth nearly $1 billion. And after a bit of a bidding war with Movie Gallery, Blockbuster would eventually drop its bid, citing the likelihood that the Federal Trade Commission would reject the deal on antitrust grounds. And in April 2005, Hollywood would agree to the deal with Movie Gallery, which it appeared to have favored all along. $850 million later, the deal was done. Hollywood Video had become a subsidiary of the once smaller Movie Gallery Incorporated. Things got much worse from here. Just 2 short years later, in September 2007, the company would begin to disclose its financial difficulties and closed shop on 500 of its 4,500 stores. And 1 year later, Movie Gallery Incorporated would file for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. The company attempted to reorganize by closing several hundred more stores, replacing the CEO and relocating its headquarters to Winsonville, Oregon. But it wouldn't be enough to prevent the inevitable. With alternative rental companies like Netflix, Redbox, and Gamefly on the rise, and the ever-advancing technology of video streaming becoming a legitimate option, it was only a matter of time before the fate of Movie Gallery, Hollywood Video, and Game Crazy would be sealed. In late 2009, stocks fell from $1.25 a share to just a nickel. The following year would be the last as more stores were shut down and the company began scrambling to survive. In a last-ditch effort, an attempt at another Chapter 11 reorganization was made, but quickly the decision was made to move forward with a Chapter 7 bankruptcy. The last Hollywood Video and Movie Gallery stores closed on July 31, 2010, and all of our late fees were forgiven. If you drive around your town today, you may notice some familiar-looking buildings. Dental offices, beauty shops, and sports bars now fill those once magical movie-filled spaces.